Welcome back. We'll be going over how to edit your design in this lesson and the different options available to you. We'll go over in depth adding and editing text, adding and editing images, replacing backgrounds. It's encouraged again to pause freely and practice the tools and options we go over, as I won't be giving too many examples for all of them. This lesson gets a bit more in-depth, so if you need to open up a notepad to write down the steps or important parts, feel free to do so. We'll go ahead and click the Add button. It'll give us some options as to what we can add to our project layout. Adding text is our first option, and that is one of the most important options you can add to your project, as it's the only text tool available. Clicking it brings us to an Add Text screen where we can add whatever text we need to. I'm going to type Adobe Spark Post Tutorial and click Done. Now the text is in its own space that can be freely moved around the project and in and out in between each grid. You can change the size just by clicking the text and dragging one of the white dots on each corner of the text box, as well as rotating it freely with the circular arrow on the bottom middle of the text box. While we have the text selected, it gives us a bunch of options, and it can be overwhelming to first-time users and even seasoned users who have never dealt with all the options before. We'll take it slow so you don't miss anything. The Edit section has 5 different options to choose from. Starting from the left, the Secondary Style option allows us to select full words and even whole lines of text. You can select words you want by clicking the words you want to be added to the secondary style. Selecting them gives us the ability to edit what we selected independently from the rest of the text. This is good for mixing text styles and blending lines of text together with different fonts and effects. As long as a secondary style text is selected, you will continue to edit only that text. Next, we have the Edit Text option, which simply allows us to add or replace the current text. The next option is the Delete option, and that is fairly self-explanatory, but a note to jot down is if you ever accidentally click Delete and get rid of something you didn't want to delete, just back out of the edit screen and click the back arrow in the top middle of your screen. This acts as a redo button, whether you're going forward or backward, in case you need to redo or undo something you did. Duplicate just creates another instance of the text with all text effects and styles included. Selecting multiple is a recently new feature to Spark Post and is essentially a group option. You can group text boxes together, icons, photos, stickers, etc. Moving on to fonts, there are a lot of options to choose from, which is surprising coming from a mobile version of an Adobe product, but that's beside the point. Based on your project layout and design, Post suggests 6 fonts that match the atmosphere of your project the best. After that, there are all the Spark fonts, language fonts, and Adobe fonts. You might notice that some fonts have a small plus above them, and that just means that there are a number of styles to choose from within that font. Scrolling all the way past Adobe fonts, there is a big plus button that lets you add more Adobe fonts, which are really handy when trying to distinguish yourself from everybody else on social media platforms and on the web in general. Next is the color option, which lets us choose a color for our text. Again, like the fonts, Spark Post gives you suggested colors, and then after that is the full range of color options. The shape selection lets you add a shape to the background of your text box. Clicking through them shows you what they'll look like. There are several options starting from basic shapes to banners, decorative, and social. I like this option for now, so we'll stick with this one. The effects section is one of my favorite features in Spark Post. It gives your text the kind of depth needed to match pace with someone who might be using Illustrator or Photoshop. There are 3 basic options that add an effect to text shadow, outline, and cutout, as well as 3 combined options that add an effect to shadow and outline, cutout and outline, and cutout and shadow. Another cool feature added is that some of these options interact with the shape you choose, meaning that there's much more control over your desired outcome. Another small feature that most miss, as it might not catch your eye if you aren't experienced, is the edit button on each of the effect options. This gives added control to shadow distance and direction, and outline, thickness, and transparency fill. Again, feel free to pause and play around with these options and features to get more comfortable with them and use your creativity to make some awesome outcomes. The order section is more important for other features in Spark Post, and we'll get more in depth on the importance of order later on in this class. The adjust section gives more precise control over your text box size and the degree as well. Clicking the nudge option brings you to a pad of arrow buttons to slowly move your text box in the direction the arrow is pointing. Clicking rotate brings us to a scale so we can see exactly what degree our text is. Also, a hidden feature is if you click the circular arrow at the far left, it automatically rotates your text box by increments of 90 degrees. The scale option is just another option that gives you more precision on exactly how big you want your text box to actually be. Skipping over the size section, as it's basically the same as the adjust option. Align is another section that helps the placement of your text within options that align text to the left, center, right, and emphasize the middle text lines, which basically increases their size to stand out. This is a great feature to take advantage of with stories on social media. Using this feature with the story option on social media platforms for promotion and advertisement purposes is more likely to leave an impact. The spacing feature lets you change the letter, line, and shape space. This section is super useful as it gives you the shape option to decrease the shape space, which as a preset is usually fairly large and not what we want. The opacity section is more for the shape than the text, and you can increase or decrease the visibility of the shape as much as you need. Finally, the style section. This is one of the more automated features in Spark Post, as it allows us to scroll through various text styles. As far as I'm aware, the possibilities are endless. Again, this is more of an inspiration feature that I use often when I can't quite put my finger on a design style for my text, or would like to compare styles with the current styles I have. Let us now add an image to our project. We'll choose Search Free Photos and choose a random picture, and once we add it, an options screen will pop up that'll give us two choices of either adding our image to the collage or moving it freely. Now, the thing you should know is if you add it to the collage, it will create a whole new grid that will mess up with the placements of all your previous images, icons, logos, and the text in the project. We really like our design so far in this lesson, so we'll select the Move Freely option. And now our image is in our project layout. It has a box around it, and that can be moved to scale size and rotate just like text boxes. Let's look at the features we have. Firstly, there is Crop and Shape, which allows us to crop our image into shapes or preset ratios. You can also adjust the image more precisely here, while also being able to flip your image both horizontally and vertically. The order section is more important this time around, as there are now two layers, one including the background and one including the text. You can practice moving the image in and out of the layers to see how it looks. We have Looks next, which gives us a short list of filter options that also have some randomized options for each filter as well. As with any basic photo editing, there is the Enhance section, where we can work with the contrast, brightness, saturation, warmth, and sharpness. Finally, opacity for the image is important as it is connected heavily with the cropping shape and bringing an image correctly into a project layout. For the last topic of this lesson, there are a few options for backgrounds. A cool feature to note is if you have a photo you're particular about or really enjoy, clicking the Info button shows all the information about the picture, as well as who shot it in case you want to use more of their work. If we click either color background, we have only three options: to replace it, delete it, or change its color. This brings us to the end of basic Spark Post design editing. You should now be able to create a design/collage and edit your project with the various tools and options we have gone over so far. I highly suggest pausing at various intervals and messing with the tools until you feel comfortable with them. Do this for all of them, and you should be able to follow along loosely with the next lessons as we implement our knowledge so far into creating a Facebook page cover for a make-believe client.